guys, it's Jacket from Jack Gets Lost on the Book Hole, and I recently saw a video on people talking about their all-time favorite books. So I thought I would do a video of my all-time favorite standalone books, not a series because I read a lot of series, but these are just the standalone ones. I actually kind of struggle with coming up with this list because I never really think about which ones are my favorites, which ones I consider the best books. And now that I've joined BookTube, I've started to think about that more, especially with not just joining BookTube, but also being part of Goodreads and rating books more. And deciding, okay, what do I like about this book? Is this my favorite book? And what kind of rating does it deserve? How's the quality of this book? Am I just entertained by it, or does it actually have good quality and not just entertaining factors? So these are the ones I came up with for my top favorites. Okay, so I'm going to start with these three first because I have them of easy access. Okay, so first I have here A Tale of Two Cities. And if you watched my video on my top 10 TBR books that I want to reread, these first three are on that list. These first three I'm going to mention. And the first one is, like I said, is Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I love this novel. I love the character of Sidney Carton. He was so awesome, such an incredible character. I did get kind of annoyed with some of the other characters, especially the main female character. I feel like she was kind of boring and annoying. I was almost disappointed with her choice. But at the same time, it's understandable. And I also, and she's not me. She won't necessarily pick who I would pick. And that does kind of irk me when people get mad at characters for choosing the character that they don't want them to choose, that they would choose themselves. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you're not the character. The character might not feel the way you do. They may not choose the person that you would choose just because you'd like that person. Because that's what I'm kind of going through with Throne of Glass series. Like, I am Team Kale, and Kale did some stupid things. He's still being kind of dumb, and Selena is also frustrating me, and I feel like she's being unfair. But that's just my opinion. But she is not choosing the guy that I like. But that's just me. I'm not the character. I am nothing like Selena. I just find her character very interesting and compelling. Like, she's a good, interesting character as far as storytelling. But this is not the person that I would choose for myself. If I were in her shoes, that's not who I would necessarily choose. But I'm not her. So I'm not the one. It's still frustrating when I read Queen of Shadows because of that, but you know what? I'm not the character. And I still love Sarah J. Maas and her writing style. But anyway, other than that, I love this book. I love the story. I definitely like literary takes on historical events. It definitely makes it easier for me to read. It makes it more interesting. You guys are gonna hate me for this, but I dog-eared a book. But it is my book and I can do what I want. And, I don't get, I'm definitely a bookmark person, and normally I'm not big on the dog-earing, but I'm not gonna get mad at people and act like they're committing blasphemy just because they dog-eared a book. But I think I dog-eared this because I was also, this was a book I read for one of my college classes. And, and of course, writing like an essay on the book and stuff like that. I think that's why, because I was trying to mark the page. There was something in this chapter. But I definitely want to reread it so that maybe I can take in some of the parts that I didn't take in before, because I just wanted to get the book done. Not because I didn't enjoy it. Obviously I did enjoy it, but it was like, when it's for school, it kind of taints the experience if it's a school reading, something you're reading for school. Okay, so next I have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I fell in love with this book, and again, another main character, and a female main character that I just fell in love with. She is a horrible person, a horrible human being, a very selfish one, but I still totally love her and find her incredibly interesting. And yes, I know this is a romance, and I've said time and time again that I don't like reading books where romance is the center of the plot, but this one is not just about that. It is an epic and a classic, and I almost feel like I should read some of the classics. And I did love this book, you know? I mean, it's one of the few times where I liked where romance was a central plot point. And plus, I like romance in my stories. I just don't like it where it dominates it and, it overshadows the fantasy or the adventure or the, even the science for that matter, And sometimes, and as soon as I see that cover this is where I do judge books by covers. Every time I see that image of the guy shirtless and he happens to have a six-pack ab and the girl is all over him and, wearing this beautiful, if it's period piece, she's wearing a beautiful dress. If it's modern but set in a certain area, like on a farm or something, she's draped all over him and they're in this sexy little pose, and they actually make fun of that in Gallivant. And that is a good show, by the way, Gallivant. It's a show that sadly got canceled. It's an ABC one. It's kind of a musical parody of stuff like Monty Python and The Princess Bride, and that fairy tale fantasy adventure type story. And there's this scene where the two main couples in the first season are singing a duet together, and they do all those sexy dramatic poses while they're singing and declaring their love or actually they're talking about or the love that could be there, or the potential that could be there in that relationship. And they're doing all those this kind of pose. Normally if it's all over the cover, then it's a turn off. But Gone with the Wind is a classic, and I feel like you almost gotta read Gone with the Wind, and I did fall in love with this book. Like I said, that doesn't mean I'll read any romance book. That's where I get picky, is when it comes to the romance. If I read books where it's a romance, specifically. And there's, of course, the first Stephen King book I ever read and fell in love with, and that is It. The book about the kids, the 7 kids, the losers, that's what they're actually called, that's their little group name, and how they defeat this monster in their town. And I actually, if you watched my weekend reading video I just published yesterday, I talk about how I got the Blu-ray edition of the movie. It just came out, I don't remember when, but my mom and I went to BJ's just to get out of the house, and I got it at BJ's. But I remember, when the movie was starting to come out, when they were talking about the movie being made and coming out, I was like, okay, I gotta reread the book. Because I knew at one point I wanted to reread it. So I bought it, this lovely edition, because my edition, my original version, was kind of a little damp and a little torn, which actually I ended up giving that to my best friend. I mean, it's still a readable copy, it's still a decent copy, it's just a little messed up. And I did tell my friend that if she wanted to buy herself a better, less beat up looking copy, then to go ahead and go for it. I mean, you guys are probably thinking, then if she's my best friend, why did I give her such a lame copy? The problem is that I was afraid that my mom would give me a hard time, my mom and dad, that I had 2 copies of the same book. Of course, after today's purchase, my mom might have given me a hard time too. It's just she doesn't want me to spend my money like crazy and have unnecessary amounts of books, which is understandable. I mean, my job is just, I don't get paid a lot at my job. All I gotta say though is thank God after today's purchase that I have a job, finally, a permanent job. So I'll be working on Wednesday, so I'll get paid Wednesday. I don't know how much I'll get paid off the top of my head, but I'll be getting paid, and I'll see how much I've gotten paid so far. So, But yeah, definitely want to continue rereading this because as you can see, I did already start it. Okay, so next, let's see. But yeah, I love that story. I love the friendship with the 7 kids. They're all outcast. And sorry, I totally forgot that I'm not talking about the books I'm not talking about ones I need to reread. I already just filmed that video. I'm talking about the books, my top 10 favorite books. Or not necessarily the top 10. I don't know how many I have on there. I'll find out. But yeah, I love, this was so terrifying, and I love being scared. And, I mean, it's a clown, and I am definitely one of those people who's creeped out by clowns. Although, ironically, I had a clown for my 6th birthday. But then again, to be fair, that clown was a female clown. So that's my excuse that, oh, it's a female clown, so it's okay. Female clowns are nice. But yeah, I just fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the friendship and the little cute little love, because there is a little bit of a love triangle in this book. But it's not like a YA love triangle. It's just the first blush of love, because these kids, the kids in the story, when they're kids, it's when they're like, 12, 13, it's so cute, and there's, like, the little love triangle is actually really cute, because it's like these 2 boys who love this one girl. I mean, in fact, all the boys, the one girl in the group, all the boys realize that she's a girl and start developing those hormones and being attracted to girls and seeing that girls are really beautiful and stuff and sexy and everything. And they're developing those hormones. And 2 of the boys, like, fall in love with the one girl in the group. They both fight. But they're not, like, they don't fight it out. They're not, mean to each other about it and beat each other up. And they don't make it difficult for the girl. They both, and maybe it's just because they're so young. So, and this is so new to them. So they don't realize that, okay, you gotta duke it out, guys. You gotta make it difficult for the girl to have to choose. And you have to be like, doesn't the guy have a shirt? Or, that all that stupid crap that teenagers do to each other when they're all like fighting over someone, when it's two boys or 2 girls fighting over, a girl or a boy. I definitely think it probably makes it easier when it's like 2 little kids. So those 3, I love those 3, but also, let's see, another one. I had just actually finished that one, and I loved this book. It was incredible. I mean, well, okay, incredible might be a bit dramatic, but, this is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is, if you have not seen any movies or ever read the original novel, this is about a guy, Victor Frankenstein, who decides to create his own life, create man. So he creates this humanoid creature, but the humanoid creature, when he brings him to life, it's not what he expected. He's horrible, he's deformed looking, he can't speak or anything like that. And like, Victor kind of freaks out and abandons the creature, and then the creature follows him home to Geneva. And he ends up, because he was abandoned by Victor, he ends up kind of taking it out on Victor's friends and family. And then he asks Victor to make him a mate, because he's lonely and he wants a companion, which is understandable. Of course, his approach to that and his persuading Victor is a little bit much, and that's playing it nicely. And it's just, this creature ends up being like Victor's downfall and ends up haunting him for the rest of his life. And it's a very beautiful, fascinating story. And I can understand how the character Victor kind of gets on people's nerves. Because he's as people, I mean, I hate on people, this is the reason for not liking a character, but he's described, people a lot of times say that he's a whiny. I think it's the really a more intellectual explanation is that the character Victor he's always complaining and he feels guilty, but he's always like, oh, poor me. It's, no, the world's out to get me. I created this monster, and this monster is killing everybody you love. Oh, it's poor me, and people must stay away from me. It's always about him. He's very vain, and whenever things go wrong in his life, it's like it's never his fault. I mean, yeah, he feels guilty about creating this monster, but he just feels bad that he created the monster, the creature. But not because he tried to play God and created this life and brought, created life and probably got this dead body and gave it life and stuff. It's more like he just feels bad that he, put this terror on his family. But it's never because that was stupid. I shouldn't have done that in the first place. I'm the reason that this creature is able to terrorize my friends and family and drive me crazy. Because I decide to play God and create this life. I decide to be dumb and do this. It's not about that. It's about, the world is out to get me. This creature has ruined my life. And blah, blah, blah. I hope that makes sense. I hope that explains what I'm... But it's also fascinating to see the contrast between Victor and the creature. And how he's fascinated by humanity. But he also is like, why does humanity hate me? I mean, I'm just trying to understand it. And they're treating me like crap because I look ugly and scary looking. He doesn't understand that. And, he's just beginning to develop and relate and adapt to humanity. And humanity, because of how he looks, treats him horribly. I'm gonna have to check my dad's phone because it rang again. And if it's my mom, I'm gonna have to check it out. Okay, so next we have The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I was one of the people who actually liked this novel. I know a lot of people don't like this because the characters are very unlikable. A lot of the main characters are, and they're all kind of jerks and very vain and very selfish. In case you don't know, this is one of F. Scott Fitzgerald's more famous novels about a man who, Nick Carraway, he, while visiting his cousin, he becomes aware of this man, Jay Gatsby, who's very rich and has these infamous parties, and it's a big deal to be invited to his parties. So Nick somehow, because the guy Gatsby is living across from him and across from on the other side of the lake, he gets invited to Gatsby's parties. And he meets him, and he's this charismatic, charming, attractive man, really cool, and Gatsby and Nick become good friends, and he helps Nick in his career and everything. And then he finds out that Gatsby's ulterior motive is to have a meeting with an old flame who happens to be Nick's cousin, who he's kind of visiting over the summer. Lives in the same summer town. So, and Gatsby had this romantic history with this woman, Daisy Buchanan. And he wants to bring back the past and reconnect with her. And he wants to, prove to her, show her that he's become rich and successful, and now he's worthy of her. So Nick is able to arrange a meeting with the two of them. And it seems like things are going good and everything, and they're reconnecting and all of that, and have this beautiful emotional reunion. The only problem is that Daisy is married to a guy who's a total asshole, and is actually cheating on her with another woman who's married. And it's about Nick kind of being caught in the middle of this whole situation, and how you realize, how Daisy's reluctant to, is too afraid to get back together with him because she doesn't want to, leave her husband and everything, even though he's cheating on her. She's too afraid to tell him, I love Jay, and I want to get back together with Jay, so we're over and we're done. She's too afraid to do that. And not that, she's well, anyway, so that's basically, and, Gatsby wants to bring back the past, as they say in the book. And Nick is trying to tell him, you can't do that. It's not going to ever be the same. You can't just resurrect the past. So I really love this book. I enjoy this book, and it's easy read. And I love the 20s, first of all. I love the setting, and the characters are so fascinating to me. I know a lot of them are unlikable and everything, but it's a very tragic, it ends very tragically, but it's still such a great, beautiful book. And I definitely want to read, and I definitely want to read more of Fitzgerald. Okay, so the next one I have here is Vicious by V. Schwab, which I read. I don't know if I read back in January or at the end of last year. I can't remember, but I fell in love with the story just like everybody else did. This is basically looking at, it's a satire, I feel like, on the whole superhero genre. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a satire as in it's funny, but it's kind of, it's actually kind of dark. But it's about these two guys, these two college students that were friends, and one of them has believes that the way he wants to do his final assignment for their class on the idea of how you can get psychic powers, like how you can get powers that characters in comic books have. And he hypothesizes that the way you do that is having a near-death experience. And so his friend Victor decides to get involved because he's kind of, jealous and petty and stuff, and he doesn't want his friend Eli to, have this great discovery on his own. So he gets involved, and then lo and behold, the hypothesis is proven right, and they both have near-death experiences, and they both develop these powers. But unfortunately, an accident happens, and that's putting it nicely, which causes them to become bitter enemies. And this whole book is about the two of them. It goes back and forth between them in college and the present, where they're trying to chase each other, while Victor's trying to go after Eli and get rid of him, because he's decided that EOs, the people with these powers, are all dangerous except for him, and he wants to kill them all. And it's about Victor trying to track Eli down and get his revenge, and stop him from killing all these other EOs. And trying to, and so it's kind of a superhero story, but it's kind of not, because they're not actually superheroes. They're kind of villain-like. They're very villainous. But it's such a fascinating story, and it's so, the cover is so cool. It looks like, what kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of Sin City, but with, instead of black and white, it's kind of orange and black. But this was just so cool, and both Victor and Eli were such interesting, compelling characters. Victor is my favorite. Eli is just, I love Eli too, but he's a very selfish character, and he makes a perfect villain. But then again, the question of this novel is, who's the real villain? But yeah, it's like, Eli is so twisted, and he doesn't realize what he's doing is wrong. He doesn't see himself as the true villain. But I feel like he kind of is the villain of this story. But Victor is no saint either. He's done a lot of horrible stuff too. Okay, so next is The Namesake by Juma Lahiri. I can't figure out how you're supposed to pronounce her name, but this is there's a word for it. Now of course I can't think of the name, but an author, Own Voices, that's what it is. Own Voices author. An Own Voices piece. This is about an Indian couple who comes to America, to live in America, and they go through the whole motions of living in America, having kids, and raising them as part American, but wanting to keep the traditions of America alive. And the couple is struggling with that, to make sure their kids stay true to their culture, their family, and just adjusting to America and adapting to it, making friends here and everything like that. It's such a good story about all that, and about the idea of modern day immigrants coming to America and adapting to it and trying to adjust to this new life. It's such a beautiful story, and I feel like it's a quick, well, not that quick, but it's still a quick read. Like, it doesn't have a lot of chapters, but the chapters are very long. It's such a beautiful story. I mean, that is, of course, it's one of those novels that, all these books, it depends on what you like to read. But I enjoyed this one. It's one of my favorites, and I read it last year, like September? Either August or September. I read this. Or maybe October. I can't remember, but I read it last year, and it was so good. And it's actually a movie, but I have not seen the movie yet. But I know that one of the actors in the movie, the one who plays the father in the story, the family patriarch, is the same guy from Jurassic Park. I mean, not Jurassic Park, but Jurassic World. It's the one. He's in that one. Sadly, his character dies in the movie, but not in this one. Well, actually, yeah, in this one too, his character does die at some point. But he dies. He's one of the victims in Jurassic World. I just love this movie, and I definitely recommend it. It is one of my favorites. That's all these books are. They're all my favorites. Okay, so next is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. I love this author. I just fell in love with this author after I read this book. It's such a great story about, about family and what makes us family and everything, and, figuring out who you are, and it's a little bit of a mystery. Like, that's all of Kate Morton's novels are. That's what they're about. They're kind of historical mysteries, not thrillers, but mysteries where people are trying to piece together and understand the events of the past. I love her writing style, and this one is the first one I fell in love with. And I apologize for my dogs. Well, my one dog. The other one is, I think, outside, and after I film this video, I'll let her in. I think she's outside, but, unless my dad, because I know he's next door, so he might let her in. But yeah, I love this. This is my favorite Kate Morton. It's still my favorite one, and I definitely, if you love historical fiction, then I would recommend checking out Kate Morton. She has, I think, like 5 or 6 novels out, and I'm hoping she's gonna write another one soon. I mean, I keep checking her website, but so far, I haven't heard anything, does she, I mean, of course, I'm sure she doesn't need to right now she's probably very successful with what she's written so far, the books she's written so far, so she probably doesn't really need to write anymore, but I would love for her to do it, because I love her writing, I love her stories, and and like I said, I just fell in love with this one. This is such a beautiful story, and, like I said, I definitely recommend it. Okay, so the last two I want to talk about is, first of all, Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum. Wizard of Oz has always been part of my life, because even though I read the book for the first time years ago, a couple years ago, so, and there was this edition of his Frank L. Baum's first 5 novels, and then there's another book like this of the next set of novels, because he wrote not just The Wizard of Oz, but he wrote several novels in this world. This is a classic, and I just love this classic. I mean, like I said, this one has always been part of my life, because my dad in community theater, he had gone in the part of Professor Marvel in The Wizard. And of course, I had the movie, and then I got a special edition of the movie on DVD. I think. Maybe not, maybe I didn't, because I'm surprised I didn't have it, because I thought I did. Maybe I just had it in VHS, but, I was going through my DVDs yesterday, and I don't think I recall think I recall putting it on that shelf. I don't think I haven't. Which is kind of a surprise because it's one of my favorite classics. But yes, I love this. This story has meant a lot to me. It's one of the few children's classics that I will read again and again. Not that I have read it again and again lately, but I love it, and I definitely want to introduce it to my nephews when they get older. And like I'm hoping to give them my paperback editions for the novel, so that in the future they can read it. But I mean, although that edition, I might have to give them a different kind and then set that one aside and save it for when they're like a little bit older. But I don't know. But yes, and I love this. Now I was gonna talk about a non-fiction read, Brain on Fire, but for some, I guess I gave it away already. I don't have it anymore. So the next one I'm gonna mention, it's not non-fiction, that has become that I would say is a favorite, is The Paris Way by Paula McLean. I know she has another one. Wait, what's... Crap. I didn't realize that was in there. Apparently I put a letter for my nephew in this book. I don't know why, because this is not a book I would give to him. I'll have to look through that. But yeah, I love, this is basically about, Hemingway's first wife, Hadley Richardson, in their time in Paris, where they, got together with all the other writers like Fitzgerald, and, I can't think of the other ones. But yeah, I find it fascinating, the lives of the spouses of these famous eccentric people, these famous writers. Like, I got from the bookstore in the village, I got, a biography on Zelda Fitzgerald. So I'm gonna read that this year. I definitely want to read that and learn more about her. But yeah, this was so fascinating, so interesting. I definitely, if you want to learn, if you're interested, like, again, another historical fiction, and if you like learning about, hope I didn't, I took it out of the page. I really hope I did not lose the page, because my mom might have been reading this book. I hope she was, but now I lost where she left off. I don't know. I didn't see where she left off. Well, I mean, she's gonna start over anyway, because I think it's probably been a long time since she read it. But yeah, I love this book, and it's so fascinating. And I definitely feel for Hadley. You definitely feel bad for her, and you want to know, like, it's amazing what she puts up with. And, it's not just her. But I also, this last year, I read, I can't remember what it's called, but the book about, what is his name? The book about, the famous illusionist. What is his name? I can't remember. What is his name? That famous illusionist, Harry Houdini. That's his name. I read about Houdini's wife, a book from Houdini's wife's perspective and everything. Like, in that book, it's about her, their life together in their World War romance, and how she, that when Harry dies, he promises to communicate with her through a code, and it's about her, finding if he's going to communicate her through this code. And it's about her talking about their life and how, how hard it is for her to understand him, and how patient she was with him, and how loyal she was to him, and it's the same, and this is kind of the same idea about the wife of this famous eccentric man, and how she was so patient, how she dealt with being married to him and his infidelity and all that good stuff. It's definitely worth a read, and I'm gonna have to, when I'm done filming, I'm gonna have to check this out and look at it. I cannot believe I totally forgot that was in there. I mean, it's funny though, because this was on my mom's shelf and collection of books I wanted her to read at some point. So I don't know why that was in there. Maybe I put it in there for her to give to him at some point. I don't know. But anyway, so those are my all-time favorite reads so far. Anyway, that as far as standalone wise, that may change, and this list might be updated over the years because I'm definitely getting more into reading standalones lately. I always will read series, but I feel like I don't read enough standalones. So I'm definitely going to focus more on that with my reading. So what are some of your all-time favorite standalones? Do you have any? Is it hard to narrow down your favorites? Are there a lot of them? Well, if you liked this video, be sure to give it a lovely thumbs up, and if you're passing through and you like the video, and you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Alright, bye!